Herman Caín was an American businessman and Tea Party movement activist within the Republican Party. Born in Memphis, Tennessee, Caín grew up in Georgia and graduated from Morehouse College with a bachelor's degree in mathematics. Wow, my kind of guy. Numbers. I love the math. Let's continue. He then earned a master's degree in computer science at Purdue University, while also working full-time for the U.S. Department of the Navy. In 1977, he joined the Pillsbury Company, where he later became vice president. During the 80s, Caín's success as a business executive at Burger King prompted Pillsbury to appoint him as chairman and CEO of Godfather Pizza, in which capacity he served from 1986 to 1996. Caín was also chairman of the Federal Reserve in Kansas City, the Omaha branch. From 1989 to 1991, he was also deputy chairman later on in the 1992 to 1994, and then chairman until 1996 of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. In 1995, he was appointed to the Chem Commission, and in 1996, he served as a senior economic advisor to Bob Dole's presidential campaign. From 1996 to 1999, Caín served as president and CEO of the Nominated President Associated from 1999 to 2020. From 1999 to 2020, he remained active in the Republican Party and was co-chairman of the Black Voice for Donald Trump in the 2020 election cycle. Let's get some more information. Editor, roll clip, fair use.
What will I tell those people whose jobs I will have to eliminate?
Are any of your employees insured now?
Yes, sir. Approximately 1/3 of my employees are insured now.
And of the third that are insured now, what percent of payroll is their insurance cost?
My insurance costs at the present time run approximately 2.5% of payroll.
And let me ask you this. On average, food service businesses, payroll is about 1/3 of the total cost of doing business. Is that about what it is?
That's an adequate estimation. Yes, sir.
Okay, so suppose, since you have part-time workers and some wouldn't have to cover it, so you wouldn't go from 2.5% of payroll to 7.9%. You might go to something like 6.5%. That's a good even number. You add 4% of payroll, and that's 1/3 of your total cost. So you would add about 1.5% to the total cost of doing business. Would that really cause you to lay a lot of people off if all your competitors had to do it too? And why wouldn't you all be able to raise the price of pizza 2%? I'm a satisfied customer. I'd keep buying from you.
Okay, first of all, Mr. President, with all due respect, your calculation on what the impact would do, quite honestly, is incorrect. Now, let's suppose that 30% of my costs are labor costs. 7.9 times that would be the 2 to 2.5% that you're referring to. The problem with that calculation, sir, is the fact that most of those 30% of the people currently have zero. It actually works out to be approximately 16%. Now, your other point about having to pass it on to my customers, in the competitive marketplace, it simply doesn't work that way, because the larger competitors have more staying power before they go bankrupt than a smaller competitor. So what I'm saying and suggesting is that the assumptions about the impact on a business like mine are simply not correct, because we are very labor intensive. We have a large number of part-time and short-term employees that we do not cover for one simple reason: we can't afford it.
This sounds like a shucky-ducky kind of crowd on a shucky-ducky kind of day, here to support an shucky-ducky kind of candidate. Thank you for being here. I don't need to tell you that America is at a crossroads again. And at this particular point in our history, it is up to us to help get this nation to make the right decisions as to which fork in the road we're going to take.
We must open up this economy. Allowing this economy to totally collapse is not a starter. It is not negotiable. It is not on the table. People want to go back to work. What Federal Reserve Chairman Powell was saying is that they are in the lending business. They are doing all that they can do in order to make the lending available through the banks, and that is a good thing. There's not a lot more that they can do. They are not in the spending business. And all Secretary Mnuchin was saying is they have put together programs to allow people to go back to work, and for those businesses that are not operating on the brink, they will be able to open back up their businesses. They want to go back to work, just like Senator Blackburn said earlier. People want to go back to work, and people want to open up their businesses. So I think that the balance between safety and economics, we can do both. We can do both. Now, one other thing very quickly, Charles. There is a political element in here, and all of the Democrats don't want us to open up, and they keep claiming we might be opening up too soon. Look at the data. We're not opening up too soon. They would love to be able to campaign on a totally collapsed economy and blame President Trump and his administration. I think that we are basically reaching that proper balance with those governors who've had the courage to do both.
Why don't you like using African American, by the way?
Because as I trace my roots back in this country, the majority of my roots, the ones that are more meaningful to me, were the slaves that were my foreparents, my forefathers. And so I identify as a black American more so than an African American. Yes, many of the slaves came from Africa, but my heritage is mostly here in the United States. With the country went through slavery, we went through the civil rights movement, so I prefer the term black American rather than African American. That's going back too far.
In your book, you tell a very moving story about you went to a local barber's.
Yes.
And all the white guys kept coming in and having their hair cut.
Yes.
And you were just left there. And eventually one of the black Americans in there said to you, sorry, this is not where you get your hair cut. You're a black man.
See,
I mean, it seems almost impossible for people of my generation to understand this was going on.
See, you have to look at the fact that in the South, the tradition, and I went to black barbershops growing up, the tradition was you didn't make an appointment, you walk into the barbershop, and whichever barber had the empty chair next, he would say, next, and you just went in the order that you came into the barbershop. So I go to Fredericksburg, Virginia, and I'm expecting the same tradition. But I sat there and I kept watching white customers being called up, and I'm sitting here. It wasn't until I went up to one of the black barbers and said, am I next? You skipped over me. And that's when he said, well, we can't cut black hair in here. I said, what? No. You got all black barbers. What do you mean you can't cut black hair in here? We would lose our jobs if we do. This is 70 miles south of Washington, D.C. I thought I was out of this kind of stuff. And so he said, but you can find a black barbershop over past Sears on the other side of the railroad track.
What did you do?
I drove over to Sears, bought me some clippers and a set of clippers, and went home and cut my own hair, and I've been cutting my own hair ever since.
Have you really?
Yes, I have. I've only had one professional haircut since 1967. How did I do?
Doesn't look too bad, actually.
I just did this morning.
Hey guys, it's Jose, your regular Joe Blow again, keeping an eye out and my ears open to conservatives not talked about in schools. Wow, Norman Caín, rest in peace. Unfortunately, we lost Norman Caín, Mr. Norman Caín, in 2020 due to COVID-19. But his legacy continues, and my job is to bring awareness to great Americans with conservative, libertarian, and independent views, and see the jewels and the smart given to us to apply in our lives. Thank you, Mr. Caín, for all you did for us. So thank you guys for sticking with me to the end. To the next one, stay free.